Stop me right now if you've seen something like this happen in the past. Undeniably one of the best and most highly regarded offensive play callers in the entire sport, he gets his hands on the disregarded quarterback he wants on a one-year deal. And that quarterback showed you over the years that he's got the skill set at the very least to thrive in this league. Throw him in the right system, possibly make an effort to surround him with the right kind of talent. It might be better than you could ever imagine. You also don't need me to tell you that we are looking at eerily similar circumstances compared to what transpired on this same team just 2 years prior. The numbers you're seeing from Darnold and KOC, they weren't just unprecedented. They showed you how he can tailor an offense directly into a quarterback's strengths. But at the same time, this is a very different style of a quarterback that he's going to be working with. So the question's not just will it work, but it's how exactly does he open up this team's playbook.
First down and 10. Murray directing traffic, sets his feet, wants him in the end zone. Harrison Jr. He's got it. There's the touchdown from 15 yards from Kyler Murray.
Now, even though the snap we just looked at together is from a Week 13 game way back in the 2024 season, it is pretty much a perfect example of what a guy like this brings to the table. Out of structure playmaking and high-level touch with precision on the football. Now, the absolute last thing I'm here to do in this video is sit here and bash this team's young quarterback after his first year as a starter. You can have your own opinions on both him and his performance. Lord knows there's already plenty of them out there. What I'm here to do is piece the puzzle together as to why Minnesota was chomping at the bit to get this guy. You dive into some of his tape, it begins to make sense where he could fill in some of the cracks of this scheme.
Panthers defense, ball has to come out fast.
Instead they drop back, they rush for Murray, back in the end zone, touchdown, Michael Wilson.
Look at the influence of McBride in the slot, what it does to this safety Scott, and that's what opens up this window.
One of the top components of KOC's offenses over the years has been attacking secondaries over the middle of the field. Not necessarily doing so by excessive volume, but more so using it as a viable option to keep defenses guessing. Watch how they use Justin Jefferson to stress this Tampa 2 call, for an example. You've got TJ Hawkinson on a seam route down the hash, and Jefferson's got a low post route that's targeting that exact same area. Now do me a favor real quick, and just imagine yourself in the shoes of the pole runner down the center of this coverage scheme. 11 times out of 10 off the snap, your priority is, rightfully so, going to be the top 3 receiver in football. Just by using Jefferson's presence in itself, you've worked to both exploit the call and reap the benefits of a quick 30-yard completion. But we also need to note, there's one massive problem when you're talking about last year's Vikings. Because their Achilles heel in the pass game was far and away their lack of efficiency in this area. A staple within the offense, and working to attack it did this team more harm than good. I'll just keep the point that I'm trying to make here short and sweet. This is one of, if not the best wide receiver duo that you're going to see across the entire sport. You watch the majority of these games back in 2025, the designs and sequencing in the plays were always creating those gaps. The execution, on the other hand, it typically wasn't there. But on the other hand, what about when you flip the script over to the new guy in town? Does he really end up making a drastic difference when you sit back and dive into this realm?
Was hurt for the first half last season. Back to Donald, launches, end zone, Harrison! Caught! An impressive grab. We'll see if it stands.
Now, these numbers over the middle, it's a conversation and discussion that you could break off in one of two ways. I mean, on the positive side, this kind of efficiency is incredible. Somewhat of a scissors concept dialed up on the back, and it's going against a 4-deep quarter-style coverage from the Rams. Now, initially, as you'll see right off the drop, Kyler knows he's going to have Trey McBride outside to the sideline if he wants it, but he also knows at the same time he can take a risk on the deep shot based on how the secondary is playing it. Outside leverage from the boundary corner, and the weak side safety who's too far wide in the moment to be able to affect that throw. The accuracy that he's shown on the bulk of these reps is promising. The one caveat to that, though, some would question how he only attempted 41 total throws in between the numbers over a 17-game season. But honestly, I would also argue that in saying, I don't think it was his fault. I think it was about what his last scheme had prioritized. Just take his top 2 targets in Arizona as a reference in both Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. While both exceptional in areas like, say, creating space, they tend to lean into their size and winning with possession ability more than anything. A simple example, the smash concept corner route going right at a dropping safety. Everyone in the stadium knows that he's not going to beat you deep. But timing up those kind of up and down the boundary feather throws, they really became the headline of Kyler's game. But at the very same time, by no means am I trying to imply that the vertical threat was extinct in this scheme for the Cardinals. Zoom out just to look a little bit closer at this go route down the field paired with a cross from earlier last season. Now, if it looks familiar to you at all, it's because it's practically identical to the clip we showed earlier in the video that resulted in a pick. But look at the left side of your screen. Wentz let this ball go aiming for that crosser right as the midfield safety was breaking down in his drop to crash on it. And of course, with him doing this, that extra layer of deep ball protection had been abandoned. Flip back real quick over to that Arizona rep. Watch as we play it here in a second, how he reads both of these safeties in relation to his routes. The second that Kyler Murray saw that safety working to clamp down in close space on the cross, he knew he had full go to try and hit that deep shot down the sideline to Marv. Now, the point of that comparison between the two plays, yeah, it's not to try to convince you if you weren't aware that Kyler Murray is a better choice than Carson Wentz. But it's to show you that the arm talent is no joke. In fact, you can make the case that it's far better than what the majority of fans would assume. You pair that kind of an asset with a coach like this, it's why I'm so eager to see what this is actually going to look like on a football field together. Kevin O'Connell has both worked with and proved that he can succeed with quarterbacks in these spots. But when you shift that conversation over to someone like Kyler, he's never been in a system like this.
So now 1st and 5. Darnold with time. He wants to go deep for Addison, and it is caught inside the 5 at the 2. Jordan Addison with the grab under duress.
We've already showed Kyler making eerily similar throws to this, but these 3 being on a depth chart together with him now is why I wanted to show you this. Remember how we highlighted Kevin O'Connell a little bit back, working to clear space over the field with some of those route combinations? Well, this is another case in point. You've got an inside release dig for Jefferson up top, and it's paired with 2 lower level routes and a double post on the same side opposite. Now, right off the turn, it at least looks like this can be another example of attacking a 4 deep quarters type coverage from the defense. You might have also noticed that I only left Justin Jefferson's route on the screen here, because one way or another, he is the one that tees off the chain reaction in all of this. The key point in Kevin O'Connell's design is that inside release off the line. He is intentionally attacking the inner shoulder of that man right in front of him, just to gain that slight advantage once he gets somewhere around 12 yards down the field to finally break off the route. Then all of a sudden, the next thing you're going to notice is that inside safety up top picks up on this immediately. And pretty much, to keep a man on Jefferson in the best way possible, the safety and outside corner essentially just switch assignments on the fly. Inside takes the dig, boundary drops to open space. But aside from that, what about those 2 post routes next to each other that we were talking about? Would you believe me if I told you that Kevin O'Connell drew one of them up with the full intention of it just being nothing more than a pick route? In the 2.5 seconds that all of this occurs in real time, you and I think absolutely nothing of it. But because of that play design, those 2 routes take up 75% of the coverage, and Jordan Addison's left by himself on an island. Now, if you want to dive into some of the KOC archives yourselves, there's pretty much an endless supply of high IQ draw-ups and concepts like this. But aside from, say, just the arm talent that's needed to operate this offense, another commonality that you see in the successful stints of quarterbacks is the pocket awareness. You also sure as hell don't need me to tell you what the consensus is when thinking of or considering Kyler Murray's play style in this realm. The happy feet heavy, sometimes almost too quick to leave his drop style of a quarterback, who also from time to time just decides to pull a rabbit out of his hat in some of the most unfathomable ways you're ever going to see. If anyone in this league knows how to work their way out of a sack or a negative impact play, it's this guy. And like we've teased already in the video, it's not just the fact that it's a polar opposite in the style, but it directly addresses one of the more glaring issues this offense had in 2025. Basically, Kevin O'Connell's entire body of work has been pocket passers. And Kyler Murray obviously bucks that trend, but that's also not to say he can't become the happy median between those two styles. This third and long rep's a great example because they're actually using his greatest strength as a weapon. Now, the Niners want to dare Kyler Murray to beat them with his arm rather than his legs, so they're going with a 6-man blitz at the backfield. Contain rushers on both edges to eliminate a rollout, and 4 bodies coming downhill inside with nothing more than a 3x2 zone on the back end for the coverage. This kind of a philosophy of favoring chaos over control when going against Kyler, it was pretty common in his time in Arizona. By no means does he over-rely on his legs to find the bulk of his success. It's just definitely worth mentioning when pairing that kind of skill with his processing ability. But let's also make it clear before we go any further, these kind of throws in the last couple of clips are not the reason a coach like KOC brings him in to compete with JJ McCarthy. Those high velocity, gotta hit the tight window throws, I mean, that is truly nothing short of the bread and butter of JJ's game. Say what you want about any other aspect of his performance, but the guy's got a fastball, an ability to thread the needle that's second to none compared to anyone you'll see.
Watch when he releases this ball, how covered Naylor is in the back of the end zone. He is a little bit bizarre on some of his fundamentals of throwing the football.
Everything about this stems back to being able to vertically extend the field, which also goes hand in hand with unlocking the entire playbook. Take a look at this design from last season. A one-on-one Justin Jefferson deep ball that's likely going to be there by attacking the weaker part of a high-low safety rotation. And honestly, everything from JJ reading those safeties to his operation in the pocket couldn't have been much better. He immediately locates the weak side safety, who's working to wall off routes that are coming towards midfield. And the opposite is pretty much just riding his side of the hash, completely eyeing down Adam Thielen on the sail route. Now, not only does he make that read, but he then proceeds to climb the collapsing pocket and lets that deep ball fly to Justin Jefferson all the way down the field. I mean, processing-wise, at the very least, it feels like the right decision was made here. But because of a phenomenal play by the safety, who's not even in the picture currently, and maybe leading this ball just a tad too much inside, a pick was the final result of all of this. The combination of being able to read those rotations and move defenses with his eyes is why I think KOC wanted to pull the trigger on this. Right here, you've got a very similar case of those skills being used side by side. 4 verticals across the board in the play call, and the back line of the defense actually looks like they're in a split field coverage. Now, why it's important to note what these 3 defensive backs are set to do in this call is because of what you end up seeing Kyler do to create the opening downfield for his receivers. First thing he does is eye up the low bender out of the slot. And you can definitely notice that when we briefly pull up the end zone view right alongside it, doing so essentially froze that inside safety in place. Now, it might not seem that critical at the moment, but flip back over solely to that field view and look why it matters in relation to that opposite safety. Read whichever direction the deep half decides to commit and put the ball where no one but your receiver can get it.
Nick Scott was extremely deep and wide on that play. Merrick was on the other side. There was just about a 30-yard hole in the center of that Panther defense.
Now sure, layering the football, using all 3 levels of the field like this is great and all, but pretty much all we've done up to this point in the video is dissect this guy's system. Granted, between both of the guys on the screen right now, Kyler's likely going to be the one that needs to do more adapting. But there's still the question, how are his unique strengths going to make an impact in changing that system? Read option concepts and shotgun heavy looks are a force multiplier in this guy's hands. But having a quarterback that can beat defensive backs around the edge is also complete foreign territory for this team. We've seen this man work his magic on one-year projects in the past. But this is a different conversation. But I'm also extremely curious what you guys have to think. So let me know your thoughts on all this down below in the comments. But either way, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.